The trade deadline came and went, and once again, the Philadelphia Eagles stood at the center of the storm. Howie Roseman didn't sit still. He never does. 3 bold moves, Michael Carter, Jair Alexander, and Jalen Phillips, reminded everyone that this front office doesn't believe in waiting around for miracles. They go and make them happen. But now, with the dust settling and the roster reshaping itself, a new question looms over Philadelphia: what's next? Because in this city, where the echoes of "Fly, Eagles Fly" blend with the roars of restless fans, good enough has never been part of the vocabulary. The Eagles want perfection, in the trenches, in the air, and in the locker room. So what pieces are still missing? What quiet moves could take this already dangerous team and make them unstoppable? One name rises first: CJ Uzomah. He's not flashy. He's not the kind of tight end who racks up highlight reels or fantasy points. But he's the kind of player Philadelphia has quietly missed, a gritty, hard-nosed blocker who opens lanes for the running game and does the dirty work when the lights are brightest. At 6 feet 6 inches, 262 pounds, Uzomah brings strength, experience, and something this offense has been searching for since last year: a dependable backup behind Dallas Goedert who can punish defenders in those heavy jumbo sets. The Eagles' offense thrives on balance, but without that second strong tight end, the blocking game hasn't been the same. Grant Calcaterra has struggled in those physical situations, and the coaching staff has leaned on practice squad players to fill the gap. Bringing Uzomah back would give Philadelphia that missing piece of muscle, a player who knows the system, knows the city, and isn't afraid to get his hands dirty in the trenches. He's been here before. He knows what it means to wear that midnight green, to block for a quarterback like Jalen Hurts, and to fight for every inch. He may not light up the stat sheet, but he could be the difference between a strong team and a complete one. And if Howie Roseman has proven anything over the years, it's that he understands one truth: championships aren't built on stars alone, they're built on balance, grit, and players like CJ Uzomah. Next, we turn to another possible reinforcement, a veteran who could reshape the Eagles' interior line, Brandon Scherff. If there's one thing the Eagles have learned from painful playoff exits, it's that a championship run can crumble in the trenches. One twisted ankle, one wrong step, and suddenly the most stable unit in football turns fragile. That's why even in a year full of bold moves, there's quiet concern behind the scenes, concern about the interior offensive line. Tyler Steen has held his own. He's been solid, dependable, but solid doesn't win Lombardi trophies. Not in Philadelphia. Not when this roster is built to go all the way. Depth behind the starters isn't where it should be, and everyone knows that when the games turn cold and brutal, depth becomes destiny. That's where the name Brandon Scherff starts to whisper through the halls of the Novacare complex. He's not just another veteran. He's battle-tested. A former first-round pick who's seen everything this league can throw at him, from playoff wars to full seasons in the trenches. At 6 feet 5 inches and 315 pounds, Scherff still carries that Iowa toughness, forged in mud and sweat. Once a first-team All-Pro, a 5-time Pro Bowler, he's the kind of player who doesn't need hype to command respect. His resume speaks louder than any headline. Last season in Jacksonville, Scherff quietly reminded the league who he is. Over 1,000 offensive snaps. Not a single sack allowed. Just one quarterback hit all year. That's more than reliability, that's mastery. And while his prime may be behind him, his technique and football IQ could still anchor a young guard room that lacks veteran depth. Maybe that's why it feels right. Philadelphia doesn't need him for 17 games. They'd need him for moments, for December battles, for playoff drives where experience outweighs speed. He wouldn't have to grind through a full season, just be ready when it matters most. And if history tells us anything, Howie Roseman understands that logic better than anyone. The Eagles' general manager has built his empire on one principle: you win in the trenches, or you don't win at all. It's why he fortified the defensive line. It's why he traded for Jair Alexander and Michael Carter. And it's why, as whispers circle around veteran names still floating in free agency, like Stephon Gilmore, a 35-year-old former Defensive Player of the Year, you can feel Roseman's eyes scanning every angle, every gap, every possible upgrade. Because when the playoffs arrive, the margins shrink. The lights get harsh. And the only teams still standing are the ones built from the inside out. Next up, could the Eagles really add another cornerback to this already reloaded defense? Even with the big trades locked in and names like CJ Uzomah and Brandon Scherff floating in the mix, one rumor just won't go away: the possibility of Stephon Gilmore joining the Philadelphia Eagles. On paper, it sounds like a dream. A former Defensive Player of the Year. A veteran with championship experience. The kind of player who's seen it all, who knows what it takes to stand tall under playoff lights. But at 35, Gilmore isn't the same man who terrorized receivers in his prime. His numbers last season told the story of a fighter still holding his own: 49 catches allowed on 80 targets, 520 yards, and just 3 touchdowns surrendered all year. He broke up 9 passes, picked off 1, and gave up a quarterback rating of 87.5 when targeted. Not elite anymore, but still rock solid. Still dangerous in the right system. And that's exactly what makes this idea so intriguing. The Eagles' defense is already stacked with young talent and veteran leadership. But one injury, one bad stretch, and the secondary could find itself stretched thin again, just like it did early this season. That's when Howie Roseman usually steps in. That's when he reminds the league that in Philadelphia, depth is not a luxury, it's a weapon. Imagine Gilmore mentoring the younger corners, teaching them the tricks of the trade, the patience, the precision that made him one of the best to ever line up one-on-one. Imagine him on a cold January afternoon, locking in across from an opposing team's top receiver, using nothing but experience and instinct to shut down a drive. That's the kind of quiet power veterans bring, not flash, not stats, but moments that shift the game. So while some teams see age, the Eagles might see opportunity. Because if this front office has proven anything, it's that they don't just build rosters, they build insurance policies for championships. The question now is simple: will Roseman pull the trigger again? Or has this team finally reached the point where it stands pat, confident that the pieces already in place are enough to bring another Lombardi home to Broad Street? The story's still being written. But in Philadelphia, they're not afraid to chase greatness, one move at a time. Sometimes, football gives you stories that feel almost poetic, moments where history circles back and whispers through generations. And that's exactly what makes this next rumor so powerful. Asante Samuel Jr., a name that carries weight in Philadelphia, could be coming full circle. His father, Asante Samuel Sr., was a legend here. A gambler in the secondary, a risk-taker who lived for the big moment. Fans still remember the way he read quarterbacks like open books, the way he baited them into mistakes. He wasn't perfect, missed tackles here and there, but when the ball was in the air, he was electric. A playmaker through and through. Now, his son's name is being whispered in the Eagles' war room. And for a fan base that never forgets its heroes, the thought of another Samuel locking down the corner in midnight green feels almost destined. After undergoing a spinal fusion surgery, Asante Samuel Jr. was recently cleared by doctors, and now the visits are lining up fast. The Panthers, Packers, Vikings, and even the 49ers have already shown interest. But in Philadelphia, this possibility means something deeper. It's not just about filling a roster spot. It's about legacy, about a son stepping back into the city where his father built a name, ready to write his own story. A second-round pick out of Florida State in 2021, Samuel Jr. has proven he's more than a familiar name. Every season he's been healthy, he's posted double-digit pass breakups, showing that same instinctive vision that once defined his father. The only setback came last year, when a shoulder injury turned into a dangerous neck issue. But now, with clearance in hand, he's fighting his way back, and the fire still burns bright. Philadelphia has always been a city that loves comeback stories, gritty, emotional, heart-driven tales of redemption. And Samuel Jr. fits that mold perfectly. If he returns to full health, he's not just a name from the past, he's a weapon for the future. But he's not the only name worth watching. Another veteran lingers quietly in the shadows of free agency, Justin Simmons. Still unsigned. Still elite. And still a perfect fit for what this defense needs. He's played under Vic Fangio, already knows defensive backs coach Christian Parker, and once earned All-Pro honors in that exact system. The chemistry is there. The experience is unmatched. And the Eagles' safety room? Thin. Too thin for a team with championship ambitions. Right now, it's Reed Blankenship, Makuba, and Sidney Brown carrying the load, with Marcus Epps sidelined on injured reserve. Makuba has shown flashes, but also growing pains. Cross-training players like Michael Carter at safety only highlights how short the depth truly is. That's why Simmons makes sense, not just as a body, but as a mentor. A stabilizing voice in the back end of a defense built on chaos and aggression. If the Eagles are serious about making another deep postseason run, this might be the quiet move that holds it all together. Because in a season defined by bold trades and flashy headlines, it's the subtle additions, the veterans with scars and wisdom, that often make the difference between heartbreak and confetti. And if Howie Roseman pulls one more surprise? Well, in Philadelphia, we've learned to expect nothing less.